but we're back.
Right.
Jamie, I'm not
Shaun Baker, I want to know from you, why did you enter a Muay Thai gym at some point in your life?
So this is a crazy story. So my Muay Thai coach, Bobby Quinn, who runs Base Muaythai, who's the head coach there, he was my community service worker. So I done community service because I was in care for 8 years. I had a was going about just doing a lot of stuff. So he was my community service worker, and I remember we were just. He's like, I think you would fit in doing it at our gym, and I was like, I've never really been one for like going to gym or doing anything like that. So I kind of just gave it a buy, and then as we were working together and I got to know Bobby and that, I ended up going along. First class, beginners class, 6 o'clock in lovely Linwood. I was absolutely bricking it, man. It's scary walking into a new gym, it is, especially. And then first class, and I just fell into it. Usually, when I do something, I get bored of it. But when we Muay Thai, I just fell in love with it, and I just wanted to keep doing it. And then I met so many amazing people for too. I met Jamie, one of the best people that I met. So that's how I got into just the Muay Thai.
What made it stick for you?
What made it stick for me was all the different things. All like boxing. You know, MMA had always like enlightened me. I'd always wanted to do that, but I'd never done. But I think Thai stuck with me because the people, for one, because the people were so nice. The coaches, they just treated me like I was one of their own, and I just fell in love with it. It was crazy how fast you fall in love with something.
What was the first show you went to? What was your first experience of fighting?
The first show I went to was Proper Fights, which was a year ago. Which was literally just a year ago, and it was. I'm sorry, Jamie, but it was Jamie versus Kyle Donnelly. That's probably sparking some bad memories for the boy, but that was my first ever fight show, and I always remember it. I've got the wristband on my TV unit just in the middle. So
kind of from your memories, the show. You don't have to talk about any fights as such. What was it about a Muay Thai show that you were like, wow? Because a year on from starting your own Muay Thai, for going to a Muay Thai show, you've got your own podcast now. You're heavily involved in the socials. You're coming down to London to watch shows. You are in love with it. So, what was it about that show that kind of stuck to your head?
can I tell you exactly? I pinpoint exactly what it was? It was the. It was Kama. It was Kama and Kilmarnock's like show, and when they announced somebody was Kama, the whole play you couldn't hear. I was sitting watching, and it was just a roar. And I think the fights are so good. Like how had I had never realised, how could I not know Muay Thai was when I was a combat sports? How could I have waited up 4 a.m. UFC, go on my phone when the grappling's on, but Muay Thai's been a thing, the whole thing. There's been a sport standing by, and I never. How does not know?
What created? Because this is the one question I wanted to ask you, but I couldn't ask it straight up. What made you start on the ropes?
So I've always loved the dark attention. Basically, like I've always wanted to be part of podcasting. But I started with a Scottish podcaster in like Hawaii 5-0, and he had Nico Carrillo, and I watched what Nico was. So I messaged, and he said it was nice. He basically enough, which is fair enough. Got sponsors. So then I just took it into my own hands, and I said, well, I'll just make my own podcast. What can I make a podcast about? I was looking about and I was just looking in the gym. I don't know anybody podcast in Scotland. But they
Yeah.
so much. So I went to Jamie, which is he's the man I went to for everything. I said, Jamie, I'm on. Just do it. So went to the studio. I said, guest I want is Jamie. The first person had to be Jamie, and then and ever since it just put up a podcast.
Did you find any struggles with starting a podcast? Because me and you both know it's a pain in the ass.
So I still have problems with it. So I just jumped in. I feel like I just jumped in too maybe quick, but like I didn't really have any about clips about. I didn't really have any thought. I just thought I'd just go sit, talk to this guy. But it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as that. You've got clips you need to know. You've got to keep consistent. You've got guests you need to keep consistent. There's a lot that goes on, and I do it all myself. I'm not the smartest man in the world.
So what have you kind of learned in terms of technology wise since starting the podcast? Have you learned? Would you say your skills in terms of social media knowledge has kind of got better?
Yeah. I would say like editing and all that. Like I never ever knew how to edit anything. Like on your iPhone, you showed me actually like the wee clips and that, and I feel just like media apps as well. I didn't even know existed. Like InShot, like I could do all this through my phone. I had no idea I could do all this through my phone. Like you don't need a laptop. All these. See if you ever want to start a podcast or you want to start clips or want to start in, you don't need a camera. You don't need a big fancy camera. You don't need anything. All you need is a phone, as an iPhone. See if you've got an iPhone, you've got an iPhone 11, iPhone 12, 13. Up. You can do it on your phone yourself. You don't need anyone else.
It's mad, isn't it? It's mad that all you need is an iPhone, especially with apps around nowadays. It's just absolutely crazy. Like you can start something and you've got everything in your hand. Like literally everything in your hand you need to make money.
Yep. That's it.
The Scottish Muay Thai team, is there anyone in Scotland that you haven't interviewed yet that you still really want to interview?
I would love to have, obviously, I would love to have the big ones on. I'd love to have JP, I'd love to have Nico, right? Top local. I'd love to have. Oh, don't flop his name. Richie, the big tall, the big referee, Richie.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember his second name.
Why?
Because he was a good fighter and now he's a referee. He's got quite a good story. He fought Andrew Tate as well, which I think is quite bizarre. And I want a referee. I've never had fighters on. A coach. I'm waiting on Bobby. Bobby is going to be the first coach on. But I'm trying to convince him. I'm trying to convince him, but he's a bit shy. But he says he's first. I've never had a referee. Well, I want to balance it to have I don't want.
Would you say it's a bad thing for someone to be in the fight shy in the fight scene? Do you think that can really negatively affect them?
I don't think it's bad, but I've seen it where like people are a bit camera shy fighter, but if you're going to be a fighter, then in the big levels you're going to have like you see on one championships, you see at RWS. There's always interviews. Like you're always getting interviewed. Like you're going to have to kind of like bypass it. Like if you want to be like a top of the range fighter, because if you're going to like the big companies at one championship, you can't turn around and tell them, nah man, I'm alright. Nah, I don't want an interview. I'm alright. Because that's part of what they do.
Yeah, I think part of being a fighter, and I think Eleanor Fellas has just joined, funny enough. She's a great example of someone who's always on social media. She's always in your face, whether you like it or not. She's collaborating with brands. She's doing TikTok. She's doing Instagram videos. It's great because not only that, it gains her sponsorship, which then gives gives her money, which then gives her the freedom to train more, to do what she wants to do. She's just packed up and moved to Thailand. Like, it's amazing and I find promoters like fighters, and they're easy. Fighters are easy to find. For example, if I see you all the time on Instagram all the time, and I know you're a certain weight or a certain experienced fighter, if a promoter asks me, I need a fighter this weight, this age, this experience, I know. I remember seeing that guy, Shaun Baker, that's his name. Right, yep, get him. Like, if you're quiet, no one knows who you are going to struggle getting in opportunities.
Exactly.
It's just one of those things. As a fighter, this is an interesting one, right? From your own opinion, obviously you've been involved with the podcast, you've been involved with going to shows, doing interviews. What does a fighter need to do to be a top level fighter in your eyes?
Consistent. Fighting a lot. Well, you see, like, I would say, well, the main people that I've had on my podcast, from like gathering and information, I would say consistent fighting a lot, and you have to put yourself out there, and you have to be best. I know you see these people title, they've got titles for fighting like 5 different times. And what was who was it? I think it was Flynn. I think it was Flynn Shanks that I had on. He just fight anybody. You're like, oh, I don't want to fight that person. I want to fight that person. It's the same with titles as well.
So what you're saying is someone that kind of chucks himself in.
It's somebody who's not scared to get hurt. You know what I mean? Like Jamie, I always say this because this is like, it's not really a quote. Jamie said, I've said it like 5 different podcasts, but when he fought Kyle Donnelly, he said something, and it was he would rather fight Kyle Donnelly and get beat some other person and win.
Yeah, I get that. It's all about kind of having the respect of, yeah, I've fought these blokes. Yeah, I've kind of been in there with these guys, kind of thing. And I get that coming from a fighting background as well. You almost want that CV to be as experienced as it can be. On the ropes itself, let's go back to the actual podcast, and it's one of the last questions I want to ask you, right? Because what kind of what placement would you like the On the Ropes podcast to be? Where would you like On the Ropes to be in a year's time?
Where would I like to be on? I want in a year's time, I'd like to have my range. This is a wee exclusive thing, so I'm thinking about bringing some like jumpers, etc. I've got my on the ropes jumpers, the ones you've seen them. You've seen them when I was down in London with the stitching. So probably going to get colours. When I say different, probably like maize. So that's probably when I want to try and get like tracksuits in that, because I like gold. So I think that's what I'm going to be. And hopefully have some big ass names on the podcast. And in a year's time, I expect to have some big names on.
Mate, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it indeed.